This is Scott the Fix-It Guy. Today we're going to be dealing with the Fridgidaire washing machine that's leaking due to a leaky boot. So we're going to unplug the machine first. We'll take off the top by removing two Phillips head screws here in the back. Zip those off. And now we're going to pull out the detergent drawer, press down on this tab, and we're going to pull that out. And remove three Phillips head screws. The one on the far left, if you notice, is a different color, kind of a shinier silver. Got to make sure that one goes in. It's stainless steel and resists the corrosive detergent. So we're removing the top now by pushing back, and we'll lift it up and off. That exposes two screws that hold in the control panel, two Phillips head screws, so we'll undo those. We have to get the control panel off because there's some screws that are holding on the front. So we're just going to pry up on the control panel, pull it toward us. Got that off. We're going to set that just on top of the frame, and then we're going to remove the zip tie by just cutting it with some diagonal pliers. Get that off, and then we can pull this hose out of the boot. This is the fill hose for the washing machine. Now we're just pulling the old boot off, getting it out of the way, and then we can do a little bit more work on removing this front panel. So there's some screws here at the top, Phillips head screws that we have to zip out. Get those out. And then we should remove the screws that are holding in the bottom area too. There's 4 Phillips head screws here at the bottom. I put the machine up on my little fastener box so I could get to these screws easier. Could put it up on a piece of wood too. So these are holding on the front panel. 4 at the bottom, 4 at the top. Zip those out. We have to lift up and then it'll come right off. And the door switch is still connected, so it's important to remove that too before we pull off the front panel. This is the boot. I'm actually putting the old boot back on. It had just slipped off, so I'm putting some hand soap or liquid detergent into this seam all the way around. This makes it much easier to put the new boot on. Acts like a lubricant. I gotta line up the top arrow here with this top piece. I'm gonna push it in all the way around the perimeter. And just take your time here. Make sure that you get it in. You want to feel that it's locked into position. I usually use 2 hands, but one hand's holding the camera. So one hand holds it in position, and I use my thumbs to push in to where it locks into position. So here I'm using my thumb. And we want to get this really in good before we attempt to put the spring on. A lot of people have trouble putting the spring around, so I use these clamps that help out quite a bit. Makes it much easier. Otherwise you need to have like 4 hands. So I'm just making sure I've got the boot really into the grooves here all the way around. The detergent really helps. Okay, so we got it into position. It looks good. Now I'm going to push in on the front part of the boot so it's pushed inside the spin basket to kind of get it out of the way. We've got the little arrow pointing at the top, got that lined up, got it all into position. Now I'm putting the spring in. I have one clamp already holding it at the 1 o'clock position, and I'm stretching it and putting it in the groove and pulling it down. And I'm going to put another clamp at the 9 o'clock position, and then I also put one at the 3 o'clock position. Now I can pretty easily pull the spring down and just do this last bit. Push it into the groove. I've got it now all the way in, all the way around. And with these clamps, it makes it really easy. These are just spring-loaded clamps. You can get them at the hardware store. Now I'm pulling those off. Yeah, without the clamps, you probably need another set of hands. Okay, now I'm going to put the fill tube back in to the boot. I secure it here at the top, and I put it back into the boot. I put a little lubricant inside the boot there too to make it easier. Put a zip tie back on, clipped off the excess. Now I'm going to put the front panel back on. So I have these little holes in the front panel fit on these pegs. Got that in. Now I'll put in the screws there at the top. Put my door switch back in and zip those back in. Okay, we're just doing that last screw, got that tight. And now we're going to put the console back in. So we have these little plastic pegs on the front console. Goes into those holes. Get that in position, push it in. Make sure everything clicks in. There's a little peg here that has to go in too. That looks good. Click that in. And then we can put in those Phillips head screws. So remember, this shiny one goes furthest to the left. It's the stainless steel screw. Get that in. Got to make sure that's in a little tighter so that's flat. Then we have two other Phillips head screws we're going to put in underneath the detergent drawer. Slip the detergent drawer back in. Put these screws in on the bottom, 4 of them. And then 2 Phillips head screws to hold the plastic console back in. One on the right, one on the left. Tighten those up. And now we're going to get the top back on, pull it toward us so that it's nice and tight, there's no gap. Then we'll put the Phillips head screws back in. So in our case, the boot was leaking because it had become disconnected, so I just reconnected it again. But sometimes the boot will have a little tear in it, and it's better to buy a brand new boot and just do the same procedure. So now I'm just pulling the front of the boot back over. I'm putting a little hand soap on my hands to lubricate the rubber. Just going to work that around this edge. Just makes it a little bit easier to get the boot back onto the front panel. Let's go all the way around. And we can put the front panel back on. More hand soap. I'm going to put that on the ring. We'll make sure that retaining ring is really well lubricated, and then we'll put that on, and we are done. Thanks so much for watching, and please subscribe when you get a chance.